yourself a cold one.
They strike 'em, huh?
And listen to Ross Tucker break down the top college prospects on another tasty edition of The College Draft.
Yeah, it's Daddy Soda time here on the College Draft Podcast, presented, of course, as always, by DraftKings. I'm Ross Tucker, former NFL offensive lineman. Most of you know that. 5 teams, 7 years, absolutely cool temp job in my 20s, primarily because I love the sport, and it enabled me to get these broadcasting gigs where I do college games and NFL for CBS. I'll be on the call this weekend. The New England Patriots at the Arizona Cardinals. Looking forward to seeing Drake May, and it'll be my second time seeing the Cardinals this year. I also do a bunch of college games for CBS Radio, Westwood One. Got a bunch of podcasts, including this one, which we're putting on the Ross Tucker Football Podcast feed this week because I love this show, because it's my only time to talk college football, my only time to talk NFL draft prospects, and my only time to talk with my brother from another mother, Emory Hunt, who I'm a huge fan of. He's all over CBS Sports HQ these days. The guy goes to every all-star game there's ever been to look at prospects, which is why if you do anything, I know we got a lot of first-time listeners, maybe first-time people watching, youtube.com/RossTuckerNFL. If I can recommend anything, it's go to footballgameplan.com/2025 draft guide. That's actually a really cool holiday gift for yourself or someone to lock in the best draft guide in the business, and make sure you get that when Emory puts it out in March. Nobody else is going to these FCS All-Star game that Emory was at all week. It's super impressive. Check him out on social media at FBallGamePlan on Twitter, Football Game Plan on YouTube. I'm at Ross Tucker NFL. Perhaps most importantly, we are at Ross Tucker Pod, and the YouTube channel is youtube.com/Ross Tucker NFL. Means a lot, those of you that rate and review the show or engage in social media. Let's get to last week, Emory. Made a bunch of bets last week, in fact, on this show. Finished 3-5 for the week. You hit on Ohio plus 2.5. They beat Miami 38-3. I was not expecting that. And by the way, I'm not a huge fan of blowouts in championship games. It's so much more fun when it's a close game. Arizona State, you laid the 2.5. They smoked Iowa State 45-19. Emory, we're not going any further until you tell me about the sensation sweeping across the nation that is Cam Skattebo. Skattebo. What is it?
Skattebo, you had it right. Like,
okay.
Big back with quick feet, man. And it's funny because he was this dominant at Sacramento State, and he just transferred up and has been dominant at Arizona State. And what I love about his game and how he goes about his business is that you know he's getting the football. Just like we talk about Ashton Genty at Boise State, you know he's getting the ball, you can't stop him. You can't stop Skattebo, and this is someone that just embraces the physicality, but he also has the quickness to make a quick cut, accelerate, make a guy miss, and then get down the field. He is the straw that stirs his drink for Arizona State. You can't stop Arizona State until you stop Skattebo, and not many teams have been able to do that. They were missing their top receiver in that ball game, and they just not only took it to Iowa State, made it an emphatic statement of why they should be in the postseason, and was playing actually for that bye week as well, with how well and how dominant they were, and all on the backs of number 4.
And they got it. They got the bye week. I mean, that's crazy. Now, things had to go their way a little bit in terms of SMU losing. I think it was a factor probably. But unbelievable. We're going to get into the college football playoff bracket because Emory and I have a bunch of thoughts. I'll tell you this about Skattebo, too. He looks like a dude you want to have a beer with. I would like to drink some Labatt Blue Lights with Skattebo. Hopefully he's 21 so I can say that. He's got to be 21.
Yeah.
He was at Sac State for several years. Anyway, I want to drink some Labatt Blue Lights with my new friend Cam Skattebo and live life to the power of we Always enjoy responsibly. Beer, Labatt USA, Buffalo, New York. Dude, I just realized I'm flying out to Phoenix on Thursday for that Patriots-Cardinals game. Maybe I can reach out to Arizona. Maybe I can have beers with Scatabo this weekend. They're off They're off for 2 weekends. Me, Scatabo, beers. It would be incredible. 2 thoughts on him from my perspective, Emory. Number one, okay, when you are a power back like that, if you have wiggle and the ability to make people miss, that is rough. Because, when you're tackling, I was a fullback in 7th grade, right? Like, I know when you're a big back, like people, they lower their head, like they try to go low on you, like they do not want to just wrap up high, right? So they're going to come try to hit you with everything they have. When they're ducking their head or they're like, if you just have a little bit of wiggle, boy, that puts them in a bad spot because they either come to hit you because you're big and they hit you with a ton of bricks and you can shake them, or they're worried about the wiggle, so they're not low, they're like high, and that's when you just go bam right through them. Like, well, you were a running back, you were a D1 running back, Emory, you can speak to it more than I can, but that combo is vicious of quick feet, agility. Like, people don't realize Bettis had some of that. Bettis would make more people miss than you realize. He would make people slip off of him because he had that quick feet. The other thing is, and you and I are always on the same page on this, and maybe we do too much on the show about this, but I don't care. It's how we feel. It's just further proof of how there's good players everywhere, and in particular, how many good players there are at FCS. This guy's playing at Sac State. Cam Ward was playing at Incarnate Word. Like, these guys are 2 of the, like, maybe they'll be top 10 in the Heisman, and they both played FCS football. So it makes you wonder, wait a minute, who else out there at FCS that we should know about?
Exactly. And to your Scatabo point, you think about this. Bettis even said this after his second season with the Rams. Like, he was the battering Ram. And then he realized he was getting banged up. He's like, man, I got to start making people miss if I want to have longevity. And it's not like you got to be Barry Sanders, but just a little shift left or right, just to give a guy not a clean shot helps you out tremendously when you're a bigger back. And that's where Datron Means thrive. That's where Bettis thrive. And that's where Scatabo thrives. And to your point about the FCS, this is all we've been trying to say, Ross. Like, the world is bigger than the SEC. Like, we are 2 non-SEC guys, right? In terms of, we didn't play in the SEC. I played in the G5. We were independent when I started. And then you played in the Ivy League. So we know that there's talent. And you made it to the NFL. So we know there's talent everywhere. And all people have to do is just zoom out a little bit, realize there's talent everywhere. Hell, everyone loves Juice Wells, the wide receiver at Ole Miss, not realizing he started at FCS James Madison before they moved up. So there's talent everywhere. We know the numbers bear it out, and that's why you got to watch the entire country and give everybody their credit, because everyone can play, and also because you have a collection of talent at certain schools, anybody can beat anybody on any given Saturday.
Well, I think that's one of the notable things from me this year. There's not like a Georgia or a Bama or a team that you're like, oh man, they're clearly the best. I mean, the team that's clearly been the best this year is Oregon. You had them laying the 3.5 against Penn State. They won the game 45-37. That was a very even game. I mean, Penn State should have had over 600 yards of offense. I mean, I think did they have 300 yards rushing? Penn State had over 200 yards rushing. The difference in the game was Aller threw 2 costly picks. One was basically a pick 6. The other one ended the game, which I still don't understand why Penn State was throwing a fade ball to one of their receivers with 2 minutes left. I'll say this. I'm going to say this more when I broadcast games. Every time Penn State throws the ball, almost every time Penn State gives the ball to Tyler Warren 44 or Nick Singleton 10, good things happen. Almost every time they give those 2 guys the ball. Like, I would just design as many plays as possible for those 2 guys. I came away from the game really impressed by Dylan Gabriel. Emory, He reminds me a lot of Tua, but he's more athletic. Like he's like a quicker Tua. The timing and anticipation, how quick he gets the ball out. Penn State has a good D line. They could not get him down. They could not sack him. He didn't even run that much, but he was able to move enough. And that quick, I know it's because they're lefties and from Hawaii, but that quick left hand release. And man, they got some receivers that can roll. That Tez Johnson guy, another guy. Where did he play before?
I think he played at it's not as on the top of my head, but he played somewhere before Oregon.
Yeah, he played G5 somewhere. I'll look it up.
But when you talk,
anyway, your thoughts on Oregon, Penn State?
Yeah, it's funny because even though I had two thoughts, even though Penn State lost this game, I came away impressed with how they played. Because normally we're talking about Penn State laying an egg in a big game. They didn't. They actually went toe-to-toe. I was also more disappointed in the fact that I thought we had two top 10 defenses coming in this ball game, and no defense really stopped anybody. But to your point about Dylan Gabriel, that's a good comp to Tua because I feel like people don't understand how valuable the timing and anticipation aspect of it is important to quarterback play. Like, if I can beat your rush with the way I get the ball out and anticipate when my receivers are going to be. And there's something to be said for playing a lot of games of college football. If you spin it forward to the NFL, we're seeing that with Jayden Daniels. We're seeing that with Bo Nix. We're seeing that with guys that have those time on task starts in college playing solid as rookies. So I'm not saying this guy is going to be a first round pick, but I would feel comfortable with a guy like Dylan Gabriel or even on a different scale at Vanderbilt with a Diego Pavia with how well he has played in games because he has played so many doggone games. And that kind of helps you in this era of college football transition to the NFL.
Yeah, I posted this on social media, Emory, at Ross Tucker NFL, but I called East Carolina at UCF in 2019, and Dylan Gabriel was the quarterback throwing the ball to Gabe Davis. Wow. Gabe Davis on a second contract, like 4 years, $80 million or something with the Jaguars, and Dylan Gabriel's still in college. It's just, by the way, when that 2019, Aller was a sophomore in high school, I think. Wow. So it just goes to show you there's a big difference in the age range and experience of these quarterbacks. And I think it kind of showed with a couple of the mistakes that Aller made. The ones you missed, Texas minus 2.5, they lost to Georgia. I got to tell you, I'm not a Quinn Ewers guy. He's a backup. He's got that weird three-quarter release. He does not look to me like an NFL starter.
It was frustrating watching this game, and I watched this game on my flight back from Daytona to Jersey, leaving the FCS Bowl. How many throws that you saw, it was like, man, if he really stepped into the throw, the receiver had the DB beat, and it's going to be a touchdown, and he left so much meat on the bone. I was wondering, how soon can they go to Arch? At least Arch gives them the dual threat capability, and Arch didn't seem like he was afraid of the moment. It'll be fascinating to see how this goes spinning forward in the postseason. But yeah, that's one. And it's funny because as I'm watching this game and I realized I took Texas to win that one, I'm thinking like, man, Georgia is like the college version of Kansas City. They just continue to find ways to stay in the game and win. So at the end of the day, they are a good team. You got to give them that credit because they lost their starter. Backup came in. He got hurt. Another guy came in, and the ball just kept rolling. And so they just found a way to make a way, and that's the mark of a good team, battling through adversity.
Yep, no question. All right, Western Kentucky, you had +4. They got blown out by Jacksonville State. UNLV +3.5. I kind of like that one. They lost to Boise 21-7. So impressed by Boise. You took your alma mater, Louisiana, -4. They got smoked by Marshall. Wasn't expecting that. And then SMU -2.5. Valiant comeback by them, but they ultimately still lost to Clemson 34-31, which leads us, Emory, to probably only have one bet from you this week, maybe on Army-Navy, because I want to get into a longer conversation about the college football playoff. Emory's picks, by the way, are presented by DraftKings. DraftKings, the crown is yours. Before we get to the college football playoff, there is a bowl game on Saturday, South Alabama, Western Michigan. But the only game I want to talk about on Army-Navy Saturday is Army-Navy. That's the game I want to talk about. Navy's getting 6 points, and the total's 40. What I don't know is I don't know the status of Blake Horvath, Navy's quarterback. I know in recent weeks Braxton Woodson had been out there, and I don't know, maybe you know more than I do, Emory, but I'm not exactly sure where Horvath is. I will say two things. One is these teams always make sure they're healthy for this game and that they're ready for this game. They know this game makes or breaks their season. And so I'm curious to see what your bet is here.
Well, listen, Blake Horvath, Bryson Daly, who quietly has as many touchdowns as Ashton Genty. But this is all about Kanye Udo. Like, anytime you have an explosive back in a triple option, that's a problem because you have the threat to break a long run every time he touches the ball. And that's going to be the biggest X factor. Outside of the fact that Army has the better defense, the more physical defense, the more consistent defense, fresh off of a beatdown of the Green Wave. It was like the Green Glacier out there freezing at West Point. I knew that was going to be a problem for Tulane. Like, they couldn't do jack. So I like Army in this one. And Army understands, even though they didn't make the postseason, but we'll get into the larger conversation of why they should be in. Their only losses to a team that may win a doggone national championship. Army will take care of business. They won't drop this game. They'll move on to an impressive 12-1 on the season, Ross.
It's super impressive, and they should be in the conversation for the college football playoff. You know, if they had played tougher against Notre Dame, like if that was a closer game, I think they would have gotten in. I'm going to tell you right now, I'm going the other way. I'm going to go with Navy getting the 6 because, man, Navy, they didn't have to play last weekend. You know, Army had to play, championship game. Navy's just laying in the weeds. And by the way, this game always comes down to a field goal one way or the other. So you're going to give me 6 points, I'll eat up those 6 points. Navy plus 6 for me, going head-to-head with Emory, who's laying the 6. Army has a better defense. They've had a better season. But Navy, I think, has got something up their sleeve for this one with the Commander-in-Chief Trophy, which is way more important to either one of them than the American Conference Championship on the line in this one. So that'll be fun. By the way, starting next Monday, we'll go through all these bowl games and bet them with Emory, right? Memphis, West Virginia, Cal, UNLV. We got WKU, JMU, Tulane against Florida. Then obviously the college football playoff game starting on Friday night. Indiana and Notre Dame, the battle for the Hoosier State. So next week should be really fun in terms of picking these games against the spread. You hinted at it, Emory, so let's dive into it now. Your thoughts on the inaugural college football playoff bracket?
Listen, and I'm glad you asked it that way because my initial thoughts tied into a point I was trying to make Saturday before they announced before the games kicked off. And people were talking about, obviously everyone's arguing about which 9-3 team is the best, blah, blah, blah. But there's two things. One, if we're going to have a 12-team playoff, like I said last week, you can't still have a 14 playoff mindset. Teams are going to have some losses. You know what I'm saying? So, yes, a 9-3 team can get into the postseason because you got 12 teams. You got to put 12 teams in. But on top of that, my whole point, Ross, and because we cover so much FCS and talk about it, I think the playoffs should be at least 16 to 20. Here's why I say 20. Because you get the 10 the 10 automatic bids for your conference championship. When we're in the winter workouts in the weight room, running those hills, and also in spring ball, and coaches tell you, hey, we work hard, we got a chance to win a championship if we work hard and get to come together as a team. It rings hollow if I'm sitting there at University of Louisiana or at University of Ohio and knowing we have no chance in hell of getting to the postseason because of this arbitrary rule of us not being P4 or P5, which makes no sense. It's just a line they just drew. But if coach is saying, hey, if we win our conference championship, we can punch our ticket to the postseason, Now that's some added juice. We see this in the FCS. We know, the Pioneer League champion essentially doesn't have a shot against North Dakota State, but at least they earn the right to show that they don't have a shot against North Dakota State. You want to give that team that opportunity. So you get your 10 auto bids for your conference, and then you could fill the 10 you 10 automatic bids, but then you get to fill the 10 at-large bids with whoever you want. If you want to put a 5-loss SEC team in, perfect. Knock yourself out. You got 10 at-large bids to do so. But at least give those conference champions a chance at the table, because we should see Army in the postseason. It shouldn't have been a debate whether or not SMU should be in or Clemson should be in because of what they've done. They lost in conference championship game. If you are a conference champion, you have proven to have gone through the gauntlet of your schedule. You have earned your right. So with that being said, I do like the initial 12 because I think they got it right, but I wish they could at least reward those teams that play great conference football.
I definitely think they got it right. I love your idea, and what I love about your idea is it would be so healthy for the sport of college football if all of the FBS conferences got a seat at the dance, right? Like, because all season, every one of those games for Conference USA, for Sun Belt, it's like, hey, the winner of this conference is going to the playoff, right? Like, they're going to be in the dance. It's what makes March Madness,
Right.
the NCAA basketball tournament, so popular. And by the way, if you let all 10 conferences in, including the 5G5 or whatever, right? One of them is going to win a decent amount of years. Like, you're going to get that upset. You're going to get that, and I'd rather see them in the first round too, as opposed to getting the bye, kind of like Boise did. I mean, I think Boise earned it, but now Boise got that's rough, playing Penn State in their first game. So they would have a much better chance of having a playoff win. They could still, if they play Penn State or SMU, they could still very easily win that game. I wouldn't be surprised at all if Boise does. People keep acting like Boise's not. They're really good.
Right.
They're really good. They have 12 wins. Their only loss was at Oregon, 38-35. That's the best. That's a good loss. That's the best good loss of the whole season, probably. So what are people even talking about? So I love that idea. I think it's 20 because I think maybe the P4 champions, if they want to have their designation, they get the 4 byes. The P4, they get their 4 byes. So that's the special incentive to win your conference. You get the bye. Then there's 16 other teams, including the G5. I think that's the exact right number. That would be awesome. So listen, looking at the bracket though, Emory, number 1, Oregon, of course. 2, Georgia, because of the way they do it with the the top 4 conference champions. Boise State should absolutely be ahead of Arizona State. So I thought they got that right. Texas at 5 is fine, although they don't really have, their best win is Texas A&M.
Right.
But the flip side is they only lost to Georgia, but they lost to Georgia twice. 6 Penn State makes sense to me. 7 Notre Dame, 8 Ohio State, 9 Tennessee, 10 Indiana, 11 SMU, 12 Clemson. Thank goodness. I would have been really upset, Emory, if they put Alabama in over SMU.
Right.
That would have been bad, because then it would have invalidated even playing in a conference championship game. Like, at that point, you should just say, we renounce the kingdom of Amunda. Like, I am no longer in the conference championship game.
I agree with you, because that's the other part of it too. Like, man, if we're gonna have this playoff, how about we stop putting these amount of games on these kids' bodies? Like, how about we just eliminate conference championship games? We don't see it at the FCS level, D2 level, NAIA level. It's about playing most in your conference and winning your conference. I get there's going to be opportunities where you may have 2 teams that never played each other in conference that could have the same record, and now you have a situation. But guess what? If you expand the postseason, Both those teams are getting in anyway. You name co-champs, or you have a one-game playoff to see who's the champ. Why not do that? You have an extra week because you would have eliminated conference championship weekend. I know that may be unfair to some, but at the end of the day, that's how you get the true winner of the conference, by having it solved on the field. I will say this though, Ross. I am super excited about these on-campus playoff games. Like, the atmosphere is going to be insane. I'm kind of wishing we had it for 2 weeks. You know what I'm saying? Like,
incredible. I can't wait. Going to be fantastic. Looking forward to it. Check him out on social media at FBall Game Plan. I'm at Ross Tucker NFL. The keg is kicked. We are all tapped out.
Thanks for tuning in to College Draft. Make sure to also check out the Ross Tucker Football Podcast, Even Money, and Fantasy Feast, all on the DraftKings Network, YouTube, or subscribe to the podcast on your favorite platform.